This is a 10-story apartment block, and this is the Chernobyl New Safe Confinement. It is taller than the Statue of Liberty and wider than the Roman Colosseum. And yet, this massive steel arch was literally pushed on rails over the world's most dangerous ruins. Beneath it sits the old Sarcophagus, a temporary tomb that was becoming unstable. If it collapsed, it would trigger a second nuclear disaster. To prevent this, workers had to operate in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. After every shift, they measured the radiation that entered their bodies. Once they reached a certain limit, they were no longer allowed to work on the project. They were racing against time to finish an impossible construction. This is the story of the plan to finally cover Chernobyl. To understand how we got to this giant arc, we have to go back to the explosion in 1986. The blast was so powerful, it blew burning radioactive material across the entire area. It left the destroyed reactor number 4 open to the sky through a hole in the roof. A massive core fire burned for the next 2 weeks, releasing a radioactive cloud into the atmosphere. This cloud contained 400 times more radioactive material than the bombing of Hiroshima. The wind then carried this contamination across the Soviet Union and most of Europe. Soviet engineers had to act quickly to stop the world from being poisoned. But the task was nearly impossible because the radiation was deadly. Workers could not use direct welding or even turn a bolt by hand near the site. Instead, they had to assemble parts remotely and move them in using heavy trucks and massive cranes. But even before they could start construction, the site had to be cleared. The roof alone was covered in 100 tons of radioactive waste, enough to fill 4 shipping containers. On the ground, they used reinforced vehicles to clean the mess, but the roof was different. The radiation at the top was so intense that it caused the electronics in remote-controlled robots to fail. This meant that people had to go in and clean the roof by hand. Soviet authorities used nearly 4,000 soldiers who were nicknamed liquidators. They shoveled the contaminated material while working in shifts lasting only 40 to 90 seconds. These men wore heavy, improvised lead shielding, but it wasn't enough. During one shift, they absorbed a dose of radiation 12 times the annual legal limit for a modern nuclear worker. Many reported a metallic taste in their mouths and a sensation of pins and needles across their faces. Because of these extreme conditions, the engineers had to make compromises. The sarcophagus was not built to last. It was built on top of ruins and supported by the damaged reactor building itself. Finished in only 206 days, scientists predicted it would only survive for 20 to 30 years. By 2010, the roof had deteriorated enough that rainwater was leaking into the building. A new, more permanent construction had to be created. But the site was still life-threatening, and the building was too weak to support any more weight. The solution came from an international competition, a sliding arch. This design allowed to build the structure 300 meters away from the reactor. By doing this, workers were kept in lower radiation zones for most of the project. But even this distance was not safe.
There's the turbine building at Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant Unit 4. And there's the new safe confinement. We've got us a Geiger counter.
Workers carried 2 dosimeters at all times to track their radiation exposure. The first gave them real-time exposure data, so they knew exactly when to walk away.
And on this side of the wall, what we see, just a little hair over 6,000 counts per minute, which translates on this tube to about 5 millirentgen per hour.
The second was for an official log that tracked their total exposure over time. Once a worker reached the limit in their dose log, they were no longer allowed to continue. They were forced to leave the project and could never return to the site. In 2015, the pressure reached a breaking point. Engineers realized the old sarcophagus was on the verge of collapse. They had to move the deadline up by nearly a year. This forced contractors to work at a pace many believed was humanly impossible. Engineers feared that any small mistake could cause the old construction to fail. It is estimated that 30 tons of radioactive dust are sitting under the old roof. If the roof fell, it would be like hitting a bag of flour with your hand. The impact would force radioactive dust out through every crack and opening. For the workers nearby, it would be a death sentence. When the arc was finished, it became a record breaker. The structure weighs 36,000 tons, nearly 4 times more than the Eiffel Tower. It is engineered to survive extreme temperatures and powerful earthquakes. It can even withstand a Class 3 tornado, the kind that only occurs once every million years. To move the arc, the team used over 200 hydraulic jacks to push it along the special rails. The movement was extremely slow and precise. With every stroke of the jacks, the arc moved only 60 centimeters. The total journey was 327 meters and took 5 days. The new safe confinement is designed to stand for at least 100 years. This gives enough time to finally finish the cleanup, which is planned to end in 2065. Unlike the old tomb, this ark has a massive internal space for specialized equipment. Huge cranes equipped with cameras are suspended from the ceiling on a web of cables. Operators manage these cranes from a shielded room to stay safe from the radiation. Over the next few decades, they will use these platforms to slowly take apart the old reactor. By the time the arc reaches its time limit, the threat of Chernobyl may finally be a memory.